So let's start with, I guess, a broad question that has come in from anonymous member 934. They want to know any tips on knowing how to plan for your future when you have no idea what your future looks like.
Yeah, so that's quite a common question we get. Like, if I, again, try to sort of, I guess, frame, when you would see an advisor or who we sort of work with on a sort of a day-to-day basis, you will have people come in that very much know like what they want to achieve and where they want to be, and then we're, obviously helping them do that. But then we get plenty of people coming in as well in this sort of situation, being like, I don't really know what I should be aiming for or what I should be doing, and that's really where an advisor can help to show you, I guess, what could be possible, what you should be sort of working towards. So, putting X away is going to get you to Y in sort of 10, 15 years as an example. Just working through that can really help, I guess, get you that sort of, what your goals should look like for yourself. But a lot of the time, it is pretty common, people coming in not really having an idea of, what's possible.
One of the biggest, so I've gone through the advice process, and one of the biggest sort of benefits I found was just having mapped out for me over like a 10-year period. Of course, assumptions are assumptions, but just sort of like, if you continue doing what you're doing now, this is what it looks like. And it's like, is that what you want? And it was just a good, I guess, process that I hadn't done myself, and sitting down with you guys, well, not with you guys, but with our advisors was beneficial.
You can sit with us at some point.
A very common question we get is around balancing paying off debt or investing. How do you approach that?
Well, it really depends on the person themselves and their, I guess, tolerance towards investing. But what sort of debt are we talking about? Because if we're talking about a credit card or a personal loan or a car loan, well, the interest rate's typically going to be 8, 10, even 20% for credit cards if you're out of the interest-free period. So it probably makes sense to focus on those debts, because long-term investment markets, kind of 8 to 10% on average for a diversified portfolio. If you're talking about a mortgage, obviously we're in a cycle at the moment where interest rates are coming down. So potentially then it does make sense to invest, because you will get a better outcome longer term. But you need to be comfortable, one, in sitting in that debt for longer potentially, and also comfortable with the potential volatility in the share market. So how we attack it is, what is someone's kind of end objectives or goals? Do they need to take that risk on? Because if, from what like you and Alex were just saying, if someone can get to their goals and their aspirations by just paying off their debt and being really conservative, maybe that's right for them. But that's not often the case, and people generally have a long time horizon, so then investing typically makes sense. But it's just balancing out the short-term goals of families and travel and private schooling or whatever it may be for someone, and then just seeing what that time frame is broadly. That helps us make the decision. But most of the time it's a combination of the two. Just depends on the percentage of one to the other.
Yeah. Nice. So this question again has come from Anon. Hey guys, curious to know, when is it a good age to start contributing to super? I'm 22, now putting roughly 50% of my pay into ETFs. I do live at home. Should I be thinking about my super contributions?
But yeah, this is again a pretty common question, and something we deal with quite a lot at Ever as well, for, I guess, the demographic that we work with. Because we've been told, right, it's been hammered into us, like, you've got to put money into super, like it's all about, protect your retirement, et cetera, et cetera. I guess, again, it sort of comes back to like, well, what's your goals, what you're looking to achieve here? So if this hypothetical 22-year-old is wanting to retire at 50, as an example, well, super's not really going to help that, because they can't access it to their sort of 60, 65. So there's no point having this huge superannuation balance and nothing in, say, their personal name or another structure. So I think that's what you sort of have to look at first and foremost. And it's about always thinking about your overall holistic sort of picture. So it's not just about having the world's biggest super balance. You should have a nice spread across multiple sort of different structures in terms of when you're looking at your wealth. And I guess what we say, which is probably this link into what Scott will go through, all this, Division 296, is when we're chatting to our clients, the risk of putting money in or extra money in now as a 22-year-old, A, you can't access it for a long time, but B, like there's so much legislation risk that you're going to go through.
Yeah.
I think they change superannuation laws on average every 3 years. Hence, we've now just got this new tax, which is likely going to come through Parliament from the start of the financial year. So there's just so many unknowns. So to be locking that kind of money into a system where there is just no certainty whether it's going to be as tax effective as it is now in the future is very, very hard to tell. So I guess, yeah, in that example, it just comes back to, what your goals are. But if you've done everything else, so, you've got your house sorted and you've got your own investment portfolio sorted and stuff like that, and you've got just simply spare money lying around, then it is still a tax effective way to basically, be efficient there.
Yeah,
as well.
that's kind of where I've landed. It's like if you're very in that fortunate position at the end of tax year to somehow have a chunk of money that you don't need to put in any other investment.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
And I like that point around regulation. It's something that is often not discussed, but we talk about sort of off air a lot. It's like in 40 years, the government could have a completely different view on what superannuation needs to be and how they want to use it. And so, to your point, locking it away now, it's like, who knows where that's going to come. Scott, you've done the numbers, you've run the figures. Firstly, what is Division 296 for those that have just joined and might be unfamiliar with it? And then can you talk us through some of how it plays out?
Yeah, no worries. So Division 296 has been around for a while now in terms of being talked about, but it hasn't been legislated yet. But with the new government, it's likely to now fly through because they don't need the independent support because they've got balance of power. What it is effectively a tax on unrealised gains in your super for money over $3 million. Now, the calculation isn't as simple as just going, my balance now is 3.5 mil, 500 grand in gains, taxed at 15%. It's not as simple as that, but it's effectively a tax on unrealised gains over 3 mil.
And they're also changing the tax rate as well?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So effectively, tax at the moment you pay at 15% when you realise the gain. They're talking about that being increased to 30% as well for again balances over 3 mil. But this Division 296 is more talking about the unrealised gains.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So talk us through the numbers. Like, is it something as a early 30s or people listening mid-20s, is it something that we should really be concerned about? Is this going to impact us? Because the way it's being pitched at the moment is, don't worry, it's just the 0.5% of Australians.
Taxing the rich. Should you care about it? Potentially, because it is going to impact people if it's not indexed. Because the issue that I guess a lot of people have is that $3 million is $3 million indefinitely.
Forever. Yeah.
Whereas a lot of rules typically are indexed. So if you look at, and I know we were talking about this before, an average kind of salary in Australia, 12% of your wage going in from next financial year. If you're 22 now, by the time you're 60, that's hidden over 3 mil just on a balanced kind of return of 7-8% a year. And that's just someone earning the median wage in Australia with no kind of wage increase. So everyone that's kind of Gen Z and in their 20s is probably gonna reach it. Should you do anything different now? Well, you probably can't. But maybe you don't do those extra super contributions. Maybe, like Alex was saying, you funnel it elsewhere. Just to kind of step back before I go through maybe a worked example, potentially that the 22-year-old that has aspirations of home ownership, maybe super is still an opportunity for them, but under, say, the First Home Super Saver scheme or something like that, where then they could pull it out to purchase their first home. But that's potentially a way that they could save tax now, build their super a bit more, but then still access it before they're 60 at the state of play at the moment. Effectively, it's quite a complex calculation. So it comes in from next year and it takes your total super balance as of 30 June 2026 minus your total super balance of 1 July 2025. So let's say had 4.1 mil which would be
Must
lovely.
be nice.
Be nice for some people
You're
out there.
fine.
This is not me.
He's got more.
But yeah, $4.1 million, 30 June 2026, and I had 3.5 mil at the start of this the financial year we're heading into. So that's a $600,000 gain.
Yeah.
Add back withdrawals, take off contributions. So there's a bit of a kind of recalc there to get the actual number that it's grown by.
Yeah.
And then it's divided again by your total super balance as well. That gives you a percentage figure, and that percentage figure then is times by the earnings, and then that's times by 15%. So it's not just, all right, I've made my account's gone up by 500-600 grand, times it by 15% tax. The number actually comes down a lot, and in that example comes out to about 10 or 15 grand in tax.
Okay.
But the potential issue is if people have self-managed super funds tied up in commercial properties and not very liquid, where does that money come from?
Yeah. The fact that is so confusing is just like...
It's typical, isn't it?
It's typical of the Australian superannuation system.
that's right.
Like when we were doing the RG 416 for our license, and you have to do all that superannuation stuff, it's just like, that. Why is this so complicated? Concessional, non-concessional, caps, this, that, 55, 60, all this sort of stuff. It's just like, the fact that it's so confusing is it's just...
Well, it's just there's so much money in the system, and it's only going to grow because the amount of people that are in the workforce, 12% of your salary, and they're only going in. It's just a way that they can just bring in more revenue, and like obviously younger people don't care as much about their super typically. But I think they should, because it's going to affect them eventually.
Yeah, this has come from Tran Nyok. When does it make sense to actually seek guidance from you guys? Do you have like a specific quantitative, if you have this much free cash flow or you're at this point in your life, is it tied to a specific account balance? When do you kind of say now's the time?
For me, it's a pretty fluid answer. Generally, what I say to people, or what we sort of prefer to see, is firstly, you've got no consumer debt. So if you're able to make sure you've taken care of that, and preferably built up a form of an emergency fund, because generally that's going to be our advice to start off with anyway. You want to make sure you've got no credit card debt, no consumer debt. Have at least sort of anywhere from a month to 6 months worth of an emergency fund there as well. So now you've got the foundations correct. So then we can sort of launch from there. So that's probably one broad set of criteria. Likewise, around the question of what sort of size account balance do I need, or how old do I need to be, or what do I need to be earning? Again, as a general rule of thumb, I kind of think like 2 years out of, say, university, so 2 years into your first sort of full-time job is probably a good time to
Nice.
start.
Okay.
Or you've completed your apprenticeship,
Yep.
or something like that, or you're in your last year of your apprenticeship, or whenever you're basically going to start, I guess, your first air quotes real job per se.
Yes.
Find your feet with that with the first 12 to 24 months. And then I think it is a good time to seek advice at that point in time, because at the end of the day, and obviously we're biased because we're financial advisors, but really the earlier you can put something in place, time is the secret ingredient to compounding in every sort of situation. So the earlier that's done, generally the better off you're going to be.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.